What's going on, guys? Aaron from Top Tier Gaming here, and today I am doing an update for Ancient Gears, and it has been a long while. I don't think I've updated this deck in like the last 6 or 7 months. It has been a minute, but yeah, Ancient Gears are back, and they are here with an updated list for the new format. Ancient Gears are a super awesome deck that has such a prowess when it comes to OTKing the opponent. It can just put up some super huge monsters that are unaffected by many card effects, and just quickly, swiftly OTK the opponent and leave them with nothing left. If you do like the Ancient Gear archetype, leave a like on this video, subscribe, it really helps what we do here on the channel, and of course if you want to see future Ancient Gear content, you're going to want to be subscribed so that you don't miss out. Also, Discord link down below if you want to join a growing Yu-Gi-Oh community, where you can talk with other Yu-Gi-Oh players, have fun, maybe play Master Duel, just talk about the game. We do have our Discord link down below. It's been a good time recently, so yeah, if that does sound interesting to you, Discord link down below, and without further ado, let's get into this Ancient Gear deck profile. Alright, so starting off with the Ancient Gear monsters, we have the greatest card himself, Ancient Gear Golem. So this is one of my favorite cards in just all of Yu-Gi-Oh! We have our nice ulti first here. Absolutely adore this card. It's been one of my favorites since, he debuted in the anime way back when. It's either Ancient Gear Golem or the man on the mat himself. These are two of just like my favorite cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! They're so nostalgic and I just think they're awesome. However, we are only playing one because Ancient Gear Golem is sort of a brick in this deck. You don't want to draw him. You just want him in your deck for Ancient Gear Catapult. This guy is not a card you really want to see in your hand, so we are minimizing him to one copy. Next up, we have the one Ancient Gear Reactor Dragon. We just play one of this as well because it is again a brick that we don't really want to be drawing. We want to be maximizing ways to actually play in this deck, as we are very hard go second. We need to break the opponent's board and make our plays, which means all the cards in our hand need to be as playable as possible. This card is really good to run at least one, however, because it's a way to sort of get an additional beat stick on the field if you are able to resolve multiple Gear Town. It also has a nice effect that can pop back row, and you can like pop your own Ancient Gear spells and traps to get effects off of them. It's a really nice card at 1, however, unless you're trying to make rank 9 plays, which since VFD has been banned just isn't worth it, I think one Reactor Dragon is more than enough. Next, we have the 3 best Ancient Gear monsters in the main deck. Would definitely be the 3 Ancient Gear Wyvern. This is your best starter. On summon, it adds an Ancient Gear card from your deck to your hand, which is super good because it can grab just a multitude of different things. If you already have everything you need, you can even grab a card like Ancient Gear Fortress, which just makes your whole board unaffected by almost everything in the game. This searches your fusion spell. This searches, maybe box to search another monster. This is a very, very important piece of the puzzle, and definitely you have 2 main starters and you want to summon both of them in a turn, and Ancient Gear Wyvern is definitely one of your better ones and one you want to see in your combo. He does have the downside that you cannot set cards the turn you use his effect, which is really weird. You're not really setting cards in Ancient Gear anyways. It's a really weird restriction. But yeah, just do keep that in mind when you are playing this deck. 2 Ancient Gear Frame. This is the other main starter in your deck. He discards a card to add a card with Ancient Gear Golem in its text or name. So that can add specifically your fusion spell and Ancient Gear Golem himself. And that's really good because adding the fusion spell is very important, and having a starter that his role is specifically to grab that spell means that Wyvern is opened up to search different cards, and that's very good because it means you can use this to search your spell and Wyvern can search anything else in your deck that you want. He discards a card which can actually be very good with Ancient Gear Catapult in certain hands and different situations, which is very important to note. So yeah, we are on the 2 frame. He also has 500 defense, which is very relevant for the next monster. 1 Ancient Gear Box. So this is the monster I just mentioned. When it's added from deck to hand, it can search another Earth Machine monster with 500 attack or defense, which frame has 500, which means you can use this to essentially become 2 Ancient Gear monsters in your hand, whether that be for fusion material or like discard fodder. Usually it's for fusion material, but yeah, the box is another one of the bricks you kind of have to play in the engine. But it's just very important to have in case you need to be able to search an additional fusion material. So this is all of our Ancient Gear monsters in the deck. It's only 8 monsters, which is a really small lineup, but I think one of the problems like a lot of people tend to have with this deck is they try to fill it with loads of Ancient Gear monsters, and that's just not really like the best for being like a competitively viable strategy. A lot of the Ancient Gear cards just aren't very good. In fact, I mean, you can even look at this small lineup of like Box, Golem, Reactor Dragon. There's a lot of bricks in this small 8-card engine. But these, like, you need at least 8 to work for, like, when you're doing your Ancient Gear combo stuff and trying to OTK. And then when you fuse from deck, you have to make sure you have enough Ancient Gear monsters in your deck to use Ancient Gear Fusion to its fullest potential. So we are on at least 8. You can probably up it to 9 and play 1 Hound. I just haven't had very successful testing with Hound, and it's not a card I've really enjoyed like drawing, or even like going in my combo to use as a way to fusion summon, but it's always an option there. If you really like Hound, I don't think he's a terrible card. I just can't fit it in this list, and these are the 8 Ancient Gear cards I choose to play. Next up, we have 2 Earth Machine extenders in the form of 2 Super Express Bullet Train. These are just a way to sort of help you make your Ancient Gear Ballista, who is such an important part of your combo. This plus any normal summon Ancient Gear monster is of course Ballista. And this card is also really good at just adding an additional beat stick on your board. If you like are just shy a little bit of damage, maybe a couple thousand, you can like summon this and then use his actual effect to send 2 cards away so he can actually swing, and it can help you clear up just the extra push for game if it so comes to that. So a very important 2-card engine in the deck is the 1 Anchor Drill and the 1 Infinitrack Trencher. So these 2 cards are very important for the urgent schedule that's in your main deck, because if you're able to urgent schedule out both of these, your plays become much more explosive. And if you've seen my previous like Ancient Gear combo video, you've seen boards where I can end on double like Chaos Ancient Max, like Reactor Dragon, Ballista, Dugaris, just absolutely insane boards. And it's partly because of this. When you can urgent schedule out Anchor Drill and Trencher, make Ballista for free, get your search, use Trencher to special back drill, your plays are just absolutely insane, and it can lead to some very high attack boards, like we're talking 20,000 plus damage, depending on how many monsters your opponent has. So this is a very important 2-card engine. And Anchor Drill by himself is just also very good. Similar to Bullet Train, he can just be a way to put Ballista on field, like summon Anchor Drill, special summon Wyvern, get your effect, and then link into Ballista. So yeah, these are just like 2 really important cards for the deck. Lastly, for monsters, we have the 3 Psy-Frame Gear Gamma, and of course the 1 driver to go with it. This is a very powerful card in this deck and always has been. It's been in every single Ancient Gear list I've had. And you don't even really use it as a hand trap. Oftentimes you're saving this for your turn to make sure that your really powerful spells like Urgent Schedule or Ancient Gear Catapult or Pot of Extravagance all resolve, and then you get an like a level 8 synchro or just 2 massive bodies on board to swing for damage. And that's always been where Gamma has been the strongest, and we are playing some very specific cards in our extra deck for Gamma that make this card fantastic in the deck. For spells, starting off, we have the 3 Pot of Extravagance. So this card is a very high risk, high reward card. It makes your extra deck very limited, which is fine because your extra deck is only going into some very key important cards anyways. The only cards you actually need in your extra deck are Ballista and your Chaos Ancient Max, or Chaos Ancient Gear Giant. I don't know why I've been calling him Max, but Chaos Ancient Gear Giant, those are the cards you really need. So we maximize those at 3 in the extra deck, and this card just helps this deck play. Because we are a hard go second deck, we want to start with like 7 cards going second so we can make sure we break our opponent's board and combo. And Ancient Gear isn't known for being like the most consistent strategy out there, so Pot of Extravagance just really helps us make sure we get 2 extra cards, hopefully find our combo, and be able to win the game. It is unfortunate that you can't play cards like Pot of Prosperity, which would really help consistency and make sure we don't banish our extra deck, but the halving of damage can actually like lose you a game, so we are on Extravagance. So the next 6 cards are just probably the most important cards in the deck. We have the 3 Gear Town and the 3 Ancient Gear Catapult. Now this is the 2-card combo that sort of makes Ancient Gear very, very powerful. If you open these 2 cards together, the deck just pops off, and it can put out so much damage so quickly and steal some very easy games just with this 2-card combo. It is just so free. Like, you catapult the Gear Town to special your Ancient Gear Golem, then Gear Town procs and specials Wyvern. You can instantly search the fusion spell, fusion summon from deck, and that's just doing the bare minimum. You can usually do so much more than just that, and you really want to see this 2-card combo. Now, I'm not running Terraforming or Foolish Burial Goods, because a very large problem for Ancient Gear's consistency is when you see like one of these pieces and not the other. And I don't really want to run like 4 of each, because while it does increase the chance to see both of them together, it also increases the chance to see just one of them, especially in like multiple quantities or just, you know, still just one. I think the 3 and 3 is perfectly fine. They're both searchable, and they can, like, this can be discarded with your, what's his name, Frame. And yeah, but this is just like the most high impact 2-card combo in the deck. And when you mix it with different cards like your Ancient Gear Fortress or Psyframe Gear Gamma that help make it resolve, and not only that, can extend your board even further, it can just be absolutely obscene what this deck can do. Probably the card with the highest ceiling in the deck is definitely your Ancient Gear Fortress. This card is absurd. It's just like a Miscellaneousaurus for Ancient Gears. Your Ancient Gear cards and effects cannot be responded to, which is absolutely obscene. Like your Ancient Gear Fusion can't get Ash Blossomed, Catapult can't get Ash Blossomed, Ballista can't be like negated in the sense that it can't be responded to. But not only that, Ancient Gear monsters can't be like targeted or destroyed the turn they are summoned. When you have this card, your Ancient Gear monsters and effects almost become invincible. There are a few cards that give this deck a very big problem that I'll get into later, and sort of how to beat them. Namely, Nibiru is a huge problem. But for almost everything else, Fortress is so powerful. It pretty much shuts Destroy Phoenix Enforcer down instantly. Like, he can't deal with your Ancient Gear monsters, so he has to pop this. And popping this can be really bad, because when this is destroyed, you can actually special summon an Ancient Gear monster from your graveyard, but then you are locked into summoning like only Ancient Gear monsters. So this card is fantastic, and it's something I want to maximize at 3 this format, because not only is seeing it very powerful, but Destroy Phoenix Enforcer runs rampant, and this card is a amazing out to Phoenix Enforcer. Next up, we are on 1 Ancient Gear Fusion and 1 Overload Fusion. So most of the time I'd be running like multiple Ancient Gear Fusion, and I have in my past list, but trying to find space is very difficult in this deck. This is a 43 card list already, and that's with only 1 Fusion and 1 Overload. This is mostly for Verte Anaconda, but it's a very good draw as well, as long as you're able to combo. And most of the time, this deck is either killing on its first turn or is losing the game. So you very rarely need a second Ancient Gear Fusion, and sometimes it's nice to open, but otherwise it can just be another brick you don't want to draw. The only time you need 2 is the very weird hands where you have to use Ancient Gear Fusion as an extender to make Howitzer, so you can make your Ballista, but that does not come up often, and even if it does, you're able to make Verte to dump the Overload still. So it's easily fine with only 1 Ancient Gear Fusion, but it is important to note that if Ancient Gear Fusion gets negated, it is much harder to actually Fusion Summon, and it looks a little weird in the sense that we're a Fusion deck, and the only way we have to Fusion Summon is 2 cards. Now, it's almost always accessible because Overload Fusion can just be dumped off Verte, but again, this list is mostly about minimizing bricks and maximizing ways to play and break the opponent's board. Next up, one of the biggest power cards of the deck, we have the 3 Urgent Schedule. This card is insane. We are a hard go second deck, and this card instantly puts 2 bodies on the field to make Ballista. It just has a lot of versatility, but most of the time you're going to be wanting to special summon your Trencher and your Anchor Drill, so you can put them in grave to use their effects. But it can also special like Reactor Dragon or Super Express Bullet Train, and it can special pretty much any level 4 or lower Ancient Gear monster. The only restriction this card actually has is sort of the fact that only machine monsters can attack for the rest of the turn, which again almost doesn't come up except for Verte Anaconda. The only like downside you have to be wary of, besides not being able to attack, is the fact that your opponent has to control more monsters than you. But again, we are a go second deck, so almost all of the time our opponent's going to have monsters and we will not. Next up, some board breakers, because again, we are hard go second. We have to be able to make sure we have outs to things. We have 2 Forbidden Droplet and 2 Forbidden Chalice. This looks a little weird, but I just don't own 3 Droplet. I haven't decided which one's better actually either. Of course, Droplet has just the higher ceiling, and it can also discard Catapult in really weird hands. And the halving off of Droplet is also very good for going for game. But taking resources in a deck like Ancient Gear sometimes just is not great. Both of these are just very powerful cards for like stopping Artifact Scythe and dealing with the very powerful go first boards we have to deal with. Of course, against like trap decks, you would side these out for backer destruction like Twin Twister and Cosmic Cyclone, but I want to be maining these especially because Artifact Scythe is such a problem right now. If you don't have access to Droplet, you can maximize Chalice and just like run other good board breakers. But yeah, I wanted to make sure I was running some good board breakers as we are very hard go second. So the next engine in the deck is probably one of the bigger engines of the deck. It's 6 cards, but only like the real problem is I haven't decided if it's super necessary or I'll just get into it and sort of explain my thoughts with it. We have the 3 Crossout Designator, the 1 Nibiru, the 1 Infinite Impermanence, and the 1 Ash Blossom. So normally these 3 cards over here, Imperm, Ash and Nibiru. Well, actually, just Ash and Nibiru. I would never run them in Ancient Gears before Crossout Designator. Ash is just super low impact for a deck that's hard to go second. I'd rather run blowout cards. And Nibiru puts a monster on your field, which makes Urgent Schedule terrible. It makes your Ancient Gear Catapult terrible. And we do not want that at all. However, this deck just has never had an out to Nibiru. Like, I do not want to be able to full combo in Ancient Gears and just lose because my opponent had Nibiru. Like, it is hard to put it into words, but because of the way this deck plays and how its playstyle is constructed, you need to win the first turn you get to play, or you, like, 99% of the time are going to lose that game. And just throwing a game away because your opponent had Nibiru, it just doesn't sound fun. Like, I want to have fun when I'm playing Ancient Gears, and that means I need to play. So I want to maximize ways to stop exactly Nibiru. But like if I'm already running out Designator with Nibiru, I might as well run Imperm and Ash as well. Imperm's just a fantastic go second card anyways, but like if I can stop Ash negating a catapult when I didn't have like Fortress or Gamma, then, you know, Designator can also hit Ash. But this is mostly just for Nibiru. Like, it's hard to really put in perspective how powerful Nibiru is against this deck unless you've played this deck and have just had it happen to you. Nibiru is an auto loss, and that is just such a struggle because Fortress protects you from literally everything in the game just about, except saying battle phase, your opponent says end of main phase, and they hit you with Nibiru. You've pretty much lost the game. There's nothing you can do. And that alone, I think, makes it worth to run the 3 Designator and Nibiru. Most of the time, this card's just not fantastic going second, and it's not just great in like a board break go second deck. But there's no negates this deck can put up to stop Nibiru while you're comboing, so I feel like Ancient Gear players sort of need to play this package to stop Nibiru because he is just an auto loss. That's sort of my thoughts right now. Maybe more testing will have me lean in a different direction, like maybe we just take the L if we get Nibiru'd and then side the Designators. But I think it's worth running this package. It is putting the deck at 43 cards because we are running, I mean, you can say whichever half is actually putting it at 43 cards. But yeah, I think this package is worth it right now, and it is something I've been testing and I think is very good. All right, going on to the extra deck, it looks a little weird because we're on Extravagance, but that is the reason the ratios look the way they do when you see large multiples. 3 Ballista, like we only need 1, maybe 2 of this card, but again, we're on 3 for Extravagance. This is like the main part of your combo. He searches Gear Town, and then you can pop your Gear Town to make one of your opponent's monsters 0 attack, which is really helpful for OTKing. Like, Ballista's really good in a lot of machine decks, like Earth Machine, but he is absurd in specifically Ancient Gears because popping Gear Town is very, very powerful. So we want to maximize on this, just so we don't banish them all. We're on the 1 Verte Anaconda. We're not maximizing this card because it's not a card that if you banish like all of it, you lose. It's just a nice option when you either get interrupted and you can't like continue further without Verte, or you really want to go for a second Chaos Ancient Gear Giant with the Overload Fusion. You can make the Verte Anaconda. So we're on 1 of it. I think 2 is something I've played previously and I like, but I currently don't own 2 either. So we're on 1. Besides Ballista, maybe the most important card in the extra deck is actually your big boss monster. This card is insane and the reason Ancient Gear can win games. This card is unaffected by spells and traps, is 4,500 attack. It pierces, it can attack all monsters your opponent controls, and your opponent can't activate monster effects in battle phase. It has like 5 absolutely obscene effects, and the fact that it has 4,500 attack, this card just wins games very, very easily, and just summoning this card against a back row deck can instantly mean game, which is another reason we're not maining back row destruction. But this is your goal in the deck. You want to make this, maybe even 2 of him, or just 1 of him and boost him up with Dugaris to 9,000, and you will just win games very, very easily. Next up, we have 2 Ultimate Ancient Gear Giant. This can be like a backup plan if all of your Ancient Gear, why do I keep forgetting his name? Chaos Ancient Gear Giant get like banished. This can be good enough. If you Dugaris this, it's like 8,800, so if they have a 0 attack monster, you can punch it and it'd be 0 attack because of Ballista. So this works in some situations where you either just can't get the 4th fusion material for Gear Giant, but you can still make this, so it's pretty nice to play 2 of that. And then 2 Howitzer. He burns 1,000, which is cool. Like if you are just shy of game and then you can make this afterwards, maybe 1,000 is the difference between winning and losing. But you oftentimes have to use this as a weird extender into Ballista, like I mentioned when I was talking about Ancient Gear Fusion, so that's why we are on 2 Howitzer. Next up, 2 very interesting cards. We are on the Scrap Dragon and the Psyframe Lord Omega. These are the level 8 synchros of choice for our Gamma. Most importantly, these can remove themselves from the board, like Gamma can, or Omega can banish himself and Scrapdragon can pop himself. And that's really important if you use your Gamma to actually be able to remove it for cards like Ancient Gear Catapult or Urgent Schedule, if you had to like Extravagance and you needed to Gamma and Ash Blossom. But another thing about Scrapdragon that's really cool is he can pop your Gear Town to pop a card your opponent controls, and then you can like use like your Gamma or Scrapdragon in a starter in that like sense. It doesn't come up often, but it is really nice, and I think Scrapdragon's always been a card I played in this deck because I think it's actually legitimately very powerful in this deck. And lastly, to Dugaris. We're able to make this pretty easily if we're going through like our Urgent Schedule combo and open like a lot of gas. Being able to boost Chaos Ancient Gear Giant to 9,000 is very, very powerful and should not be, you know, scoffed at. If you can make this with your Giant, it's almost always game, and we're playing 2 just in case we banish it off of Extravagance. Alright, so that's going to do it for this Ancient Gear deck profile. I hope you guys enjoyed. Ancient Gear is a super fun deck, and it's super nostalgic for me. I absolutely love Ancient Gear Golem, like I said. If you enjoyed the deck profile, leave down below what you think of Ancient Gear this format. If you think it's like super good or just a really fun deck. I mean, most of the time it is just always a fun deck, right? But we're trying to make it as competitive as possible. And this is sort of the build that I've had the most success with. Hope you guys did enjoy. This has been Aaron from Top Tier Gaming. Leave down below what your favorite Ancient Gear monster is, and I will catch you guys next time. Bye, YouTube.